Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to be telling you how I landed an internship at Amazon and how you can too. You don't need to be this cracked, extremely smart person to land an internship. You simply need to follow some guidelines and know some strategies which will make it much easier. So the first strategy is to apply extremely early, as early as possible. So the idea is that as soon as the internship gets posted, people are going to be starting to get hired and stuff. People will start to be applying for the positions, and as early as you can apply for these positions, the higher chances are that the position isn't full yet even. Some employers don't even bother to take down the internship, so the position might already be full and you might just be wasting your time putting an application. So that's the first one, being really early. And this didn't just help myself, but it helped even another friend of mine get into the same company. Another person I know, same thing. So this isn't just a case for me. This happened to many people. Being early is key. The second thing I want to talk about is even the season in which you're applying can have an impact. For example, usually a lot of internships roll out during the September to December season. So if you manage to start applying at that time, you have the advantage, as those are where a lot of opportunities come. For me personally, I wasn't even aware of this, so I applied much later and I ended up being lucky, I guess, in this aspect. And yeah, a season can have a reasonable impact in the opportunities you have for specific role. In my area of computer science, there's many roles all throughout the year, but in certain areas, perhaps investment banking at big firms, you might only have these opportunities at select times of the year, usually that September to December period, which I will talk a bit about these higher end internships in terms of payment, which are usually these investment banking internships, stuff like that, at big firms. Those require, I think, even more selection. And what some people do for these type of internships, now this tip is only for these type of internships, and this is not something I've experienced, so take it with a grain of salt, but it is to have connections, in the sense that you should always be trying to contact through LinkedIn employees of these big firms, so that maybe have a Zoom call with them to try to make them refer you to the company. That's how competitive these firms are. So you really have to put in the extra effort to have a good relationship almost with the company. And it sounds a bit unfair almost, but it's reality. Connections in life are extremely important. So yeah, that's one thing I wanted to just point out, because I was surprised when a friend told me about this, that people do this every day to try to get into these top firms. But as I said, in my case, this wasn't a problem, and it in general should be fine. The other thing I wanted to talk about is having a good CV. The CV doesn't have to be insane. You don't need to have made every single project that exists on the face of the planet. You don't have to have built a spaceship, but you should have a minimum amount of projects that you've completed to demonstrate your skill set. In my case, I also am in a uni degree, and that's helpful. Once you've already completed part of the university degree, it's pretty useful. But you don't even need to have that much experience. For my role, as long as my skill set fits well, which was the case, you will have chances to get into the internship. work experience is extremely valuable, but I had limited work experience and I still got in. So once again, a much bigger factor is being early in the application, because that's when people are getting employed on a rolling basis, and that's where you have the chance. The CV is important, but I wouldn't say it's the biggest factor out of the ones I've mentioned. So those are the main factors that you need to take into account when it comes to actually getting into that interview phase or whatever comes next. Usually in these big companies, you have several interviews after, and maybe even some tests, stuff like that. And my tip for that part of the procedure is to just study for them. There's nothing secret hidden to be done. Now with artificial intelligence, a strategy which came in handy is I received an email with some things that should be expected to know for the interview. I simply plugged those things into ChatGPT and told them, give me a summary of these things, give me some in-depth explanations of this. Watched a couple of YouTube videos. It's always good to have a broad, different ways of learning, whether it's watching, reading, listening. That helps you learn the information better. Teaching other people even. So I did that. I plugged the thing into ChatGPT. And then the cool part is I even asked, hey, give me interview questions on for this specific role I was applying for. And she gives me the questions. I can practice with those questions. And turns out many of the questions in the actual interview resembled those that ChatGPT gave me. I even think I used the ChatGPT voice feature where you can even talk to him, kind of practice like that. Didn't work too well, but all of these things are pretty useful to study for the position. And apart from that, there isn't much more to it. The main key, if you only take one thing from this, is to be as quick as possible, as early as possible in a position. And one last tip I do want to give is volume. At the end of the day, this internship thing is a numbers game. This application thing is a numbers game. And by just keep applying, you will eventually get a position. Obviously, you've got to apply, as I said, with a decent CV, but if you just keep applying, you will eventually get there. Had to apply to Amazon probably more than a handful of times until they gave me the offer for this position. So it really is about that. If you do it enough, you will eventually get it. And if you follow these tips, it will be even faster. So yeah, I hope these tips are useful. Thank you for watching.